Hi, good day. My name is Trisha Nicole Manawat and I am the first presenter of Group 4. So the lesson assigned to us are lesson 8 and 9. So in these lessons, we will be talking about employee separation and retention until the pay structure that comprises the mere reasons why an employee stay in an organization. So for the lesson 8, employee separation and retention. So first of all, we want to know what is employee separation. So what does that mean? Employee separation usually refers to the end of employment. And what about retention? Retention is an ability of an organization to retain its employees. So what is a very vital way to keep the good performing employees in an organization? Well, I think the answer is job satisfaction. Well, to compete effectively, one must ensure that good performers are motivated to stay with the organization, whereas low performers are encouraged or forced to leave. So, for the topic 1, managing involuntary turnover and managing voluntary turnover. So, despite a company's best efforts in the area of personnel selection, training, design of compensation systems, there will be some employees who will occasionally fail to meet performance requirements or will violate policies while on the job. So, there are two types of turnovers. The first one is involuntary turnover. So, it is usually turnover initiated by the organization. So usually these are the people who display counterproductive behavior, so the organization took the matters in their own hands. And the voluntary turnover, of course, turnover initiated by employees. So now we proceed to the principles of justice. So there are clauses that an employee needs to sign in their hiring paperwork. It is called non-compete clauses. So what is non-compete clauses? So it is when you get fired or do a voluntary turnover, you will not be able to apply in the same industry anymore. Why? Because the information and the strategy of the former company might leak to its competitors. So I think it's justifiable and just right to do the non-compete clauses. So the next one is the outcome justice. So it focuses on the end. I think it is based on the final product of an employee, while procedural justice focused on the means, which means it looks on the process and how the employees was able to come up with that output. And lastly, interactional justice. It refers to the interpersonal nature of how the outcomes are implemented. It is where the security takes the employee away from the organization. So, next one we have is progressive discipline and alternative dispute resolution. So termination should come about the end of a systematic discipline program. It has two central components: documentation and progressive punitive measures. So we all know and we all agree that it is not justifiable to fire an employee on his first offense. So we have a discipline process called alternative dispute resolution, or ADR. So in this process, we have the stage 1, the open door policy. Two people in conflict attempt to arrive at a settlement together. So which means it is a private conversation between the two people to arrive at the settlement. And if that doesn't work, we move on to the stage 2, which is the peer review. It is a panel composed of the representatives that are on the same levels of those in the dispute, and they hear the case and attempts to help parties arrive at a settlement. So if that doesn't work still, we move on to stage 3, or mediation. It is a neutral third party from outside the organization. It hears the case and via a non-binding process tries to help arrive at a settlement. And if that doesn't work still, we have the last stage, or stage 4, called arbitration. So what is arbitrator means? What are the arbitrators? I think based on my research, it is the one who is officially appointed to settle a dispute. So like this one. So arbitration is a professional arbitrator outside the organization, hears the case and resolves it unilaterally by rendering a specific decision or award. So now we move on to employee assistance and wellness programs. So an employee assistance program or EAP is a referral service that supervisors or employees can use to seek professional treatment for various problems. So we have the first one is behavioral change. So when an employee has a dissatisfaction, he or she will voice out the concern to a higher personnel. So as a higher personnel, you might think that it is disrespectful to approach by a lower level personnel. But as an upper level personnel, you must see this as an opportunity to learn and solve an important problem. If not applied, well, employees can initiate change through whistleblowing. So what is whistleblowing? It is done by an employee that and they exposes information that are unsafe, abusive informations, and maybe illegal informations that is not good for the company's reputation. So the next one is we have physical job withdrawal. So if job conditions can't be changed, a dissatisfied worker may leave the job, especially if the source of dissatisfaction relates to organization-wide policies. The organizational turnover is likely. And the last one is psychological withdrawal. So when a dissatisfied employees are unable to change the situation or they cannot remove themselves physically from their jobs, they may psychologically disengage themselves from their jobs. So psychological disengagement can take several forms. So first one is if the dissatisfaction has to do with the job itself, the employee may display a very low level of job involvement. And the second one is when the dissatisfaction is with the employer as a whole, the employees have a low level of organizational commitment. So now we move on to job satisfaction and job withdrawal. So the key driving force behind all the different forms of job withdrawal is job satisfaction, which we will define as a pleasurable feeling that results from the perception that one's job fulfills or allows for the fulfillment of one's important job values. So this definition reflects three important aspects of job satisfaction. So the first one is job satisfaction is a function of values. It is what a person consciously or subconsciously desires to obtain or get. Second, this definition emphasizes that we have different employees have different views of which values are important, and this is critical in determining the nature and degree of their job satisfaction. The third important aspect of job satisfaction is perception. Each employee have different perspectives as to what is truly right. So it is sometimes called a frame of reference, which is a standard point that serves as a comparison for other points and thus provides meaning. So lastly, I have sources of job dissatisfaction. So job dissatisfactions, these are the things that may bring dissatisfaction to the employees. So the first one we have is unsafe working conditions. If applicants or job incumbents conclude that their health or lives are at risk because of the job, well, attracting and retaining workers will be impossible. Second one, we have personal dispositions. Turnover is more likely to be an issue for employees who are high in negative affectivity. Next one, tasks and roles. Many aspects of a task have been linked to dissatisfaction. There is a strong positive relationship between task complexity and job satisfaction. Well, the boredom generated by simple, repetitive jobs that do not mentally challenge the worker leads to frustration and dissatisfaction. Next one is supervisors and co-workers. Well, if the supervisor is caring and respectable in person and the co-workers are easy to talk to, well, a person is satisfied to see it. And lastly, pay benefits. Work is a primary source of income. For some, pay is a reflection of self-worth, so pay satisfaction takes on critical significance. So that's all for my report today. Again, this is Trisha Nicole Manawat. Thank you.
Greetings, I'm Aaliyah Novesteras and I will be your second reporter for group number 4. To continue Ms. Manawat's report, we will be talking about measuring and monitoring job satisfaction. We measure and monitor job satisfaction to maintain the employee's approval regarding their job. So we do it in two ways. The first one is JDI or Job Descriptive Index. A Job Descriptive Index emphasizes various facets of satisfaction. It includes the pay, work, co-workers, supervision, and promotion. The second one is PSQ or the Pay Satisfaction Questionnaire. Pay Satisfaction Questionnaire gives a more detailed view of exactly what aspects of pay are most or least satisfying. So to give you an example, a research report conducted by the Society for the Human Resource Management in USA surveyed that 67% of the surveyed employees got satisfied with their jobs in contribution respectful with treatment, so how their organizations are treating them. 63% for overall compensation or pay, 60% for the benefits, 58% for job security, and 55% landed in both opportunities to use skills and abilities and trust between employees and senior management. Let's move on to my report proper. Lesson 9. Pay Structure Decisions. To give you an overview, total compensation consists of cash compensation and benefits. Salary level decisions can be broken into two areas. First one is pay structure. Second one is individual pay. In this chapter, we will focus on pay structure, which in turn entails the consideration of pay level and job structure. Pay level is defined as the average pay of jobs in an organization. So it includes the salaries, wages, and benefits. Job structure is the relative pay of jobs in an organization. Another overview is this chapter's focus is on why and how organizations attach pay policies to jobs. In the next chapter, we look within jobs to discuss the different approaches that can determine the pay of individual employees, as well as the advantages and disadvantages of this different approach. Topic 1. Equity, Theory, and Fairness. It states there that equity is not equality. Why? Because this theory suggests that the people or the employees itself evaluate the fairness of their situation by comparing themselves with others. So, there's a tendency that a massive comparison could exist within an organization. It also suggests that equal pay between two workers with an equal contribution would likely to be perceived as unfair. According to this theory, a person, or represented by small letter t, compares her own ratio of perceived outcomes. Perceived outcomes involves the working condition or pay and benefits to the perceived inputs. Perceived inputs are the effort and ability that an employee put to her job to the ratio of comparison. So if P's ratio is smaller than the comparison of others ratio, that is underrated inequity. Meanwhile, if P's ratio is larger than the comparison of others ratio, that is overrated inequity. This theory also explains that the principle of fairness and balance within the organization is practiced by their management. However, this theory also explains that the principle of fairness and balance, where the degree of motivation of the employees is correlated to their own perception of fairness and equity and justice. Meaning to say, if a worker compares themselves to their coworker and finds that the results are fair, most likely they will be motivated to work, otherwise less motivated. And the consequences of this comparison to the other workers depends whether if equity is perceived. If equity is perceived, no change is expected in peace behavior or attitude. There are two types of employee social comparisons of pay: external and internal equity. External equity is most likely to influence the decisions of the applicants whether to take the job or find a job elsewhere. Meanwhile, the internal equity influences the general attitudes of the employee. Topic 2: Developing pay levels. To develop pay levels, we have three ways. The first one of it is market pressure. Under market pressure, we have product market competition. In here, organizations compete in multiple dimensions. That is quality, service, and price. Price is the most important of it. Under the market pressure, we also have the labor market competition. In here, shortages and surpluses influence pay levels. Shortages happen when there is an increase in the demand but decrease in the supply. Surpluses happen when there is an increase in the supply but decrease in the demand. Employees as a resource. Having higher labor costs is not necessarily a concern if you also have the best and most effective workforce. The workforce that produces products more efficiently and with better quality. Deciding what to pay. According to efficiency wage theory, it is a circumstance when organizations have structures or technologies that depend on highly skilled employees only. Market pay surveys. Pay surveys provided information on ongoing rates of pay among competing organizations. So, under market pay surveys, we have three types. The first one is benchmarking. Benchmarking happens when an organization compares its own practices and products against those of competition. In compensation management, benchmarking against product market and labor market competitors is typically accomplished through using one or more pay surveys. The second one is rate ranges. So it allows the company to recognize differences of employee seniority, performance, or training in setting individual pay. It also permits the company to know whether they are exerting or spending the rightful amount with regards of the employee's input to the organization. The last type of market pay surveys are the key jobs and non-key jobs. So let's go first with the key jobs. Key jobs are also known as the benchmark jobs. So these are the jobs that more stable and therefore have a more stable income than non-key jobs. These are also the positions that remain consistent within the industry in terms of seniority, salaries, or responsibilities and can therefore be compared from organization to organization. These are also the positions that are inherent from the business. Examples are the office managers or HR managers, or to the industry. Example is the graphic designer to the digital media industry. Thus, by definition, key jobs cannot be compared or valued by the use of market surveys alone. However, the key jobs is just simple. These are just the unique jobs to an organization, and the salary grades for these jobs are decided by comparing them with a related benchmark job. So for our last topic, we have developing a job structure. We develop a job structure through external and internal comparison. The external comparisons are the one we have discussed earlier, and the internal comparisons we have job evaluation and point factor system. So we will go first with job evaluation. Job evaluation is a way to measure job work internally. So it's composed of compensable factors and a weighting scheme based on the importance of each compensable factor to the organization. So it moves within the organization. So that's how we measure internal comparison. And the last one, we have the point factor system. So after generating scores for each compensable factor in each job evaluators often apply a weighting scheme to account for the differing importance of the compensable factors to the organization. Weights can be generated in two ways perhaps. The first one is priori weights. Priority weights can be assigned, which means factors are weighted using expert judgment. So these are the judgment from the senior part of the organization, so the bosses, about the importance of each compensable factors. The second one, weights can be derived empirically based on how important each factor seems in determining pay in the labor market. So that's it for my report. I hope you understood something, and we will be having Miss Nicole Oyardo as the third and last reporter for Group 4. Thank you for listening.
Developing a pay structure. Before we discuss on how to develop a pay structure, first we need to identify what is a pay structure. So pay structure is the compensation given to the employees and shows the breakup of the salary into various components. It also creates a fairer process for determining individuals' compensation and help companies to map out their employees' path to grow and higher pay. So look at this table. In this table, there are 15 jobs. For which of these 10 jobs are key jobs and 5 of these are non-key jobs. So in this table, 10 of these are key jobs. So in these jobs, both PA survey and job evaluation data are only available, while the other 5 jobs, which is non-key jobs, there is no data survey available, only job evaluation information is available. So, in developing a pay structure, it involves evaluating jobs and establishing associated salary ranges such as entry, mid, and high level based on market data and the company's compensation policy. Market surveys. It is the approach with the greatest emphasis on external comparisons. It is also achieved by directly basing pay on market surveys that covers as many key jobs as possible. So, market surveys are the tools that directly collect feedbacks from the target audience to understand their characteristics, expectations, and requirements. So, pay policy line is a second paying approach that combines information from both external and internal comparisons. It also introduces a greater degree of internal consistency into the structure. It is also the policy by which an organization pays compensation to its employees. It is also the pay level that the company set its pays at compared to the market pay. Typically, the midpoint of the pay structure is set to the judge the going market rate. The next one is the pay grades. Pay grades are defined as a method of categorizing different types of jobs into groups that have the same relatively pay rate and internal work. So they are also used to determine a standard framework of monetary compensation for both private and public organizations. So pay grades typically encompass two separate levels of evaluation. The first one is the vertical range and the second one is the horizontal range. So vertical range is associated with the responsibilities needed for a specific position. On the other hand, horizontal range corresponds to tenure and performance of the workplace. So in this way, employees' progress can be assessed on a regular basis rather than relying on an open form of negotiation for fair salary ranges. Now we are done discussing topic 2 of lesson 9. Let us now proceed to the topic 3, which is the importance of process, participation, and communication. So participation, employee participation, compensation, decision making can take many forms. And it is important to distinguish between participation by those affected by policies and those who actually implemented the policies. Communication. An example of the importance of communication was found in the study on how an organization communication pay cut to its employees and the effects of theft rates and perceived equity. Two organization units received 15% across the board pay. The reasons for the pay cuts were communicated in different ways to the two pay cut groups. Adequate explanation, pay cut group, management provided a significant amount of information to explain its reason for the pay cut and, and also express significant remorse. While on the other hand, Inadequate explanation group received much less information and no indication of remorse. The topic 4, which is the last topic in lesson 9, are the challenges or the problems with the job-based pay structure. The first problem is they may encourage bureaucracy. The job description sets out specific tasks and activities for which the occupant is responsible, and the implication, those for which the occupant is not responsible. The second problem is the structure's hierarchical nature reinforces a top-down decision-making and information flow as well as status differential, which do not tend themselves to taking advantage of skills and knowledge of those closest to production. The next one is the bureaucracy required to generate and update job descriptions, and job evaluation can become a barrier to change. It is because wholesale changes to job descriptions can involve a tremendous or huge amount of cost and time. The fourth problem is the job-based pay structure may not reward desired behaviors, particularly in a rapidly changing environment where the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed yesterday may not be very helpful today or tomorrow. The last problem is the emphasis on job levels and status differentials encourages promotion-seeking behavior but may discourage lateral employee movement. So it happens because the employees are unwillingly to accept jobs that are not promotion or that appear to be step down. Now we are done discussing the problems with job-based pay structures. Now let us now proceed to the responsive to the problems with job-based pay structure. There are two responsive to these problems. The first one is the delayering. So delayering is reducing the number of job levels to achieve more flexibility in job assignments and in assigning merit increases. The second one is the banding. So banding is a method for evaluation and construction of job grading structure that exchanges a large number of narrow salary ranges for a smaller number of broader salary ranges. So banding is also defined as a strategy for salary structures that consolidate a large number of pay grades into a few broad bands. Paying the person. Pay for skill, knowledge, and competency. Competency-based pay. Competency-based pay is a pay structure that compensates employees based on their skill set, knowledge, and experience rather than their job titles or position. A competency-based pay plan encourages employees to reach the pay rate that they want, charge of improving their skills and work. So the basic explanation for this is if you want your employees to learn more skills and to be more flexible to their works, you should pay them to do it. Next one is the skill-based pay. Skill-based pay is a compensation system that rewards employees additional pay in exchange for formal certification of the employee's master's skills, knowledge, and/or competency. So it means that the employees receive additional pay only after they demonstrate the skills, knowledge, and competency that the system rewards. These are the references that we use in our presentation. So that's it. That was our discussion about lesson 8 and 9. I hope you learned something. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and have a great weekend.